All right, so now back in Blender, what I want to do is I want to make this sword and the shield at this point in the middle, the origin here at 0, 0, 0. Because what happens is if we export the sword and the shield here, when we import them into Unreal Engine 4 as they are now, this would be like their natural resting place, which would look really weird, even if we had physics. But basically you would go to move it, and the gizmo would be here in the center. See, it would be like this in Unreal Engine. It's just not accurate. So we want to take the shield and we want to put it at 0, 0, 0, as well as the sword. And then when we position the sword and the shield in Blender, that's the position you would want every single sword and shield that you added to your game to be in. You want all your weapons and your armor, whatever you use, needs to be positioned in Blender, and size and everything like that roughly the same. So that way all your pieces are basically the same and they're all rotated the same way, etc. And that's because, let's say you had a sword that was pointing this way like it is now, and then you had another sword that was pointing like vertical. You'll see later on, if you were to attach that to the player's hand, then one sword would be off to the distance and one would be pointing the wrong way. So it's like every weapon and item you have in the game, you want them all to be aligned the same way. So you want all the swords positioned the same way, you want all the shields positioned the same way, helmets, so on and so forth. So what I'm going to do is with the sword, there's this little gizmo down here in the center. What I can do is I can go Object, Set Origin, and then I want to do Geometry to Origin. Yeah, like that. So now you can see it move to the center here. I'm going to press the 1 key, and I'm going to rotate this because I want it aligned properly. So now I got it. Basically, it doesn't have to be perfect, but I got it basically aligned here. And then I'm going to press 3. And now I want this rotated up like this. Okay? So it would be okay like this, but what I personally like to do is I like to put the bottom of the mesh at 0, 0. So now you can see how it's aligned here. And it would be a good idea to actually save this Blender file. So hit save and then save it to your project. So I'm going to save it here, and I'm going to call this the items.blend. And basically the idea with this blend file is you can open this blend file now anytime. And what I would do with it from here on out is every item, like every sword or every shield or whatever that I want to use in my game, I would first import it into Blender here. I would position it so it's roughly the same as this sword, for example, and then export it into Unreal Engine 4. So you can go on to any website that sells models like CG Trader or whatever, right? There's just lots of websites where you can buy 3D models. But every model I buy, I would first bring into Blender and align it with this sword here before bringing it into Unreal Engine 4, just so it's scaled correctly, sized correctly, and positioned correctly. Okay, so that's the sword. Now what I can do, once the sword is positioned like this, what I want to do is I want to go to Object, Apply, and then click All Transforms. So now the rotation, everything is zeroed out. See the scale, the rotation, location's all at 0 here. The scale's 1. So now the sword is now ready to be exported. So I can go to File, Export FBX. And here I'll just do sword 01, and I only want the mesh now. Okay, so selected objects, mesh, and then I just want to open this and make sure it's all the same. Okay, yeah, so see it's all good. So then export, and then now let's get the shield lined up. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come up here. I'm going to hide some things here. I'm going to hide the root with this eye. And I'm going to hide Greystone, and I'm going to hide the sword, just so we can see better. So again, select the shield object here, set origin, geometry to origin, press 1 on my keyboard here. And now I'm just going to rotate so it's just vertical a little bit, and I guess I'll rotate the Z as well. And then maybe position it like that, and then I'm going to bring it up. Okay, so that's how I'm going to have shields be in this project. So again, any shield that you want to bring into your game, first bring it into Blender, and make sure it's aligned like this one is. So use this shield and the sword here as like the template for how you want any other weapons you use. Okay, so now with the shield selected, just file export FBX, and we'll do shield 01. So you can kind of get an idea of how you can have just tons of different items now. So now back in our project here, under the main folder, I'm going to create a new folder, and let's call this, call it pickups. And I'll make a new folder for swords, another folder for shields. So we're just kind of getting organized here. So in shields here, I'm going to import our shield 01. And it is not a skeletal mesh. This will just be a static mesh. And auto generate collision, I want false. We'll do our own collision here. Do not create material, that's fine. And then I'll do import. So now we have our shield. And you can see how it is here. And then when I take the shield and I put it into the world now it's set up correctly. So see how the gizmo is right at the base of the shield. If we would have imported it without moving it around in Blender, the shield would be like, the gizmo would be here at the ground, but the shield would be like up here and rotated all strangely. So that's why we moved it around in Blender. All right, so now we want to set up the material here. So if I come to Greystone _ tough, here is the material for it, tough sword. So I'm going to browse to the material. And then now in the shield static mesh, I can apply it. And there we go. We need to set up the LODs now. So down here on the number of LODs, I'm just going to enter 4 and then apply. And Unreal Engine will automatically make some LODs so that the shield looks better. All right, now for collision, we don't have any collision. If you come up here to the collision, check simple collision. There is no collision right now. So what I'm going to do for these weapons here is I'll just use a very simple box for them. There's no reason to use like polygon based collision because then your collisions are really heavy on performance. I'm just going to add a box and it'll just be something like this. So now with this collision added, this little simple box here, if I come into the level, I can just pull up the mesh here. I can turn on physics just to test. And then if you click the arrow here and go to simulate, it'll just kind of show you the collision on the object. It's not, again, we're not using mesh collision, meaning we're not calculating collision based on the actual polygons because then it would just be way too heavy on performance. We'll just use a simple box and have it be in the world like that. So that's the shield. Now let's do the same thing with the sword now. So I'm going to close the shield. Okay, so let's now import the sword. So now I'm going to come into the sword folder, import sword. And same settings, I believe. Yeah, do not create materials, import. Open this up. And then we got to browse to the tough sword again, the material. And with it selected, I can just plug it in. And again, I'm going to do a number of LODs. I'll just do 3 for the sword because it's only 4,000 triangles. So 3 is more than enough. And again, we got no simple collision set up, so let's just add a box. And to me, that's fine. So I'll save it. Browse to the sword, I'll bring it into the world. And now let's simulate physics just for demonstration. Yeah, see, so that's good enough using that simple box collision. Okay, so we can now delete these from the world because we know they work. And that's going to do it for this video. So in the next video, we'll start setting up the player character, the main character that the player is going to play using our new Greystone character. So I will see you then.